This is going to be one of those nights where I have a hard time looking into the camera because my screen's over here, my camera's over here, and I'll be looking at the chat a lot. Don't mind me. And also, I'm very distracting, you can imagine, as perhaps you've experienced. So tonight we're doing something kind of new. Everybody on here is used to me doing tarot or just talking, but tonight we're going to be reading. So I took a poll of books for people to read, and it was out of four choices. Initially, I had said that I would read Mythology 101, but I can't find it. So I'm sorry to, I can't remember who voted that one. I think it was Wolfie, unfortunately. Um, Hi, thank you. Oh man, it's hard to read the chat. I wish I could wear my glasses while I was reading, but I cannot. Yeah. Um, thank you. I like it too. I'm very excited for Halloween. Hi. Oh my God, I love that. I obviously didn't see it. So, hey guys. Yeah, I'm very excited. I honestly like do this thing where I have more costumes than I do Halloween plans. So far, I'm at six. um, I should pull this closer to me so I can read easier, but oh, might temporarily disconnect the camera if I am not careful. Okay. Actually, I think I can pull this whole thing closer to me, which would be good because I really didn't realize that I could not read the chat. Hell yeah. No, I'm not putting that book away. That's what we're doing. But I know I haven't seen you guys in so long. Okay, we'll do a little chat mode. And oh my God, I almost forgot I got to roll the ads, guys. Um, I didn't even pull it up. So we'll do chat mode for a minute and then I'm reading us to bed because it has been a minute since I got to talk to any of you. And I'm excited. So after the first ad break, we will chat for like 20 minutes, okay? And then we'll get into it. I'll show you my new deck, but I can't use it yet. Um, sorry, I have to pull up the ad thing and I have to play them, but my subscribers do not have to watch ads. Just a reminder to subscribe so that you too cannot watch ads as they are playing right about now. Okay, so I got a BRB. All right. Are these ads going or no? Do this. There they go. Dun, dun, dun. But then, to my lovely subscribers, welcome to chat mode. Welcome to chat mode. This is the new chat mode. I did a lot of editing and revamping on the Twitch stream, just like I did in my life and my hair. We will be reading tonight. Oh wait, this is an ad. Well, we are reading this tonight. We'll talk about it when we come back from the ad break. I don't even know. 9 ads. It's 3 minutes. I'm so sorry. They can't hear me talking over the ads. That's really funny. I don't think any of my subscribers are watching right now. You got an ad blocker or what? This is what we're reading tonight. Okay, none of you must be, so we're just going to BRB. Subscribe. Reminder to subscribe. And we're back. So, if you're here for the reading, the screen will change and you'll know when it's time. Sorry, I'm also not used to my camera and my screen not being the same place. So, I'm watching the chat, but I'm talking to you, right? So, it's confusing. Um, I will be reading shortly, but I have not streamed in like a month. And now I stream very sporadically. So, we're just going to chat for a few. And then we will be reading the first book of the Suki Stackhouse series that the show True Blood is based off of, Dead Until Dark. So I'm excited, and the stream is going to be more reading than tarot. Addies? What are you talking about, Addies? What? Oh. Okay, when you said Addie's, my first thought was a dress and my second thought was Adderall. So I was just like, what in the fuck are you talking about? You meant advertisement. That's pretty good. I missed you guys. Sorry, I was moving. So I just like new space, new setup. Um, so I took the month off. I also periodically take a month off if I don't schedule one. It just happens that way. And it seems to be every 6 months of streaming, I take a month off of it and then come back. I know. This isn't going to probably be the regular setup. I'm still working on getting my art on the walls and everything. So this is just, you know, on the couch moments, but I'm trying to set up an actual space. So you can look forward to that. And it's going to be more reading than tarot. I'm sick of doing tarot. You can get a personal reading. You can get a personal reading at any time on my website. They are always available. But I get too drained and I don't realize it until I need to take a month off. Yeah, it is kind of a nice little change of scenery. I almost put illymilly.com/illymilly. Girl. I also took a tea break, so what a doozy. Um, and then everything else you'll find out eventually because I'm still a writer. And so, oh no, okay. Yeah, we'll see you in a minute. So you can get a personal reading at any time, but the stream is going to be more about reading books. This is the book we're reading tonight. I have not started it yet. So you will be hearing the first of it, but we're just chatting for a few because it's been a minute. I'm saying hello, welcome back to the Vibe You stream on Twitch. Wish I was joking, but come on. That's the best way people have described it, right? Um, yes. Yeah, and be careful is a good one. I can kind of read now. Oh, hello. Hi, Dom. It's nice to see you. This book won the vote, by the way. I didn't have Mythology 101. I know that you didn't vote for that book, but I know you were there that night. And I don't think anyone else on the stream was except maybe Punch Drinker, but they were silently lurking then and they are silently lurking now. um, yeah, I know. That's why I was letting. Oh, you're right. You were rooting, but I knew you did not vote this book, but this is the book that won. Um, I did a poll on stream and across 2 Instagrams. So it was quite the turnout, but Suki won by 1 vote to, I think, the Gita. No, X5. No, it was, I think it ended up being, is it Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita was second place, I think. It's the Suki Stackhouse series, Dead Until Dark. It's what the show True Blood is based off of. Hell is holy, yeah, because God made it, right? So, what about holy hell? What if I just always referred to hell as holy hell? Holy place, hell. I mean, same thing. Oh, it's so sacrilegious. You're so blasphemous. Da, da, da. Yeah, I know. I've been trying to be less controversial, but it's just in my nature, I think, to be that way. Anyways, what's up, y'all? Let's take this sticker off because I did not pay no $15 for this book. I'm pretty sure I got it for 50 cents. And I think, listen, before we read this, I just want to say my feelings about True Blood are separate from the book. Oh my goodness. That's what you meant by light yourself on fire. Got it. Very sad. So the hoodie's okay? Though? Like just to clarify. That's why I rule of thumb, not the rule of thumb. That was a bad one. Um, I just generally avoid wearing white because I too smoke weed. And I also eat food. And I am Marilyn Monroe messy, I think. No, it sounds like she was kind of like straight up gross. I'm still very cleanly and organized, but when it comes to food, messy, messy, messy. Like I cannot help it. I don't know why. Pig like even. Oh, it is for you. It's not for me, bitch. The fuck you talking about? Excuse you. It's not illegal for everybody. Yeah, exactly. Legal here in baby Canada too. Thank you. Sorry you live in Australia, bro. This is America, okay? And it's legal in some states, and I happen to be in one of them. Canada. Yeah. You don't know about Canada's baby? Two, actually. You know, one they had a while ago, the other one, just, well, forget it. Go look at a map and figure it out. Anyways, what's up with y'all before we start reading? Which I don't know when that will be. I said I would chat for 20 minutes before we started reading. But again, this shit gets too draining because I have no limits. And then I just am forced to take a month off by God or the universe or whatever every 6-ish months. If you, well, I don't ever post. I have some of my old streams posted on Patreon, but not all of them. So I always forget to tell people if they ever do want to watch any of my past streams. They're up for 2 weeks, obviously, as VODs, but I do export them and eventually they go on Patreon, but I've been so bad at putting them on there. I pretty much have like the first 6 months I was streaming on there, and now we are a year and 6 months in, I think. That doesn't sound right, but it's true. No. Yeah. Ah. Have I been streaming that long? None of you have been there since the beginning. No, Dom's been around for a while, right? Dom, you might be my like oldest follower on here that's still, and that was December. But of 2022? No, it is still 2023. Oily Boy was in the summertime, right? No? January. No, you had to make a new account, didn't you? Or did you really only follow me in January? Wow. I can just check. Whenever I click someone's name, it tells me when you followed me. Since June 1st. Yeah. So I called it. You are not the oldest, but you are on the channel right now. And a lot of the people, I think Twitch goes in phases where people who watched me in the early days don't seem to watch me anymore. It's like a phase, and you guys will probably get sick of watching me too. Well, I've known you for almost a year now, or like, internet known you. I can't believe you would say that in front of my friends. Like, dumb. You can't tell them that. You rocks, bro. Dom rocks. We can't argue. Your name's literally Dom Rocks. You're not. You can't just say that. It's Dom. I hope that was okay. I was like, I hope it's a typo. It is kind of wild. You know what's funny? I always do that. I always make a sign of the cross and blow it with a kiss whenever I hear sirens. I don't know if it's old habit because I went to Catholic school. You know what I mean? And it would be like, oh, we pray, whenever something's happening. Um, or if we would hear sirens, I guess maybe we did. I don't remember really specifically doing that. One of my teachers probably used to do that. Um, but it's a habit that I've had. I don't even know how long that I've had that habit because I just do it instinctually when I hear sirens. Very interesting to me. I don't even pray like that, you know. Like if I'm gonna say a prayer, I might fold my hands, but I don't make the sign of the cross because it's like, why am I worshiping a man right now? That's weird, because it's Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Like where it should be like Mother, Father, Holy Spirit, or Son, Daughter. Actually, probably Father, Mother, Son, Daughter. Instead of like Father, Son, Holy Spirit. It's kind of a weird thing, you know. God probably shouldn't be gendered, but God's definitely not a woman. I agree with that. Why would she do this? God is not a woman. That's like the silliest thing I've ever heard. God's either probably no gender or a man, but I don't think God could be a man. How could he create something and be it? Like chicken and the egg, The egg did kind of invent the chicken. Chicken didn't invent the egg, right? That makes sense, right? Kind of. God's the egg. We're just the chickens. Because when you think about it, I know that it's not like a literal question and people like probably hate that I have an answer. But when it says which came first, the chicken or the egg, obviously the egg hatched the chicken. And then it's like, oh, well, who laid the egg? A dinosaur. It is literally really that simple. A dinosaur laid the egg and one day a chicken came out. That's basically how how it went down. It was someone else's egg before it was a chicken. And eventually a chicken came out. So the egg obviously came first. Eggs existed before chickens. And once more, the egg did have to hatch the chicken. And it was probably laid by a dinosaur because birds come from a very long lineage of fucking dinosaurs, you know? So, which came first? The egg. Why are people still asking that question as if it's some it's crazy theory that you can't fucking answer. It's like a fucking redundant rhetorical question. No, it's not. The answer is egg. I never understood that. Um, God is everything, and it is hard to put a gender on that. Oh, I love that. I love your perception of God being a bright white smoke sphere going around planet to planet, planting high volumes THC flower. So sweet. Uh, I love that. Okay, y'all, it has been 20 minutes. No one had any comments to make about my egg comment. Sorry. Eggs existed way longer than chickens. Why are we still asking this question? I am the only one who thought that was funny. Um, that's very cool. I believe that there's probably many societies that are matriarchy. That's okay. Can I read yet? How we feeling? Nobody's really saying much anyways, except Dom. He hates when I do anything besides talk. He's gonna be like, I hate books. Like, okay. So, anyways, my views are not directly affected by the author of this book. What I'm saying is sometimes it feels really like she may have been prejudiced as a person because the characters are like the way they're described is yes, it's like a first person narrative, but it's just like Is the character that way or are you that way, Charlene? I don't know the answer to that question. So the book, sometimes I'm like, this is some questionable material, right? But the show True Blood is amazing, and they never cringe on prejudice topics because they just handled them better. I don't know how else to describe it unless you've seen the show and read the books. So I've read the first three of these, but I only have the first three. So if we are going to read the series, we'll see if people like this one. Um, his parents probably weren't chickens. Like at some point, Neanderthals became Neanderthal human instead of primate, right? So like at some point, yeah, your parents aren't necessarily the same thing as you. And at some point chickens were dinosaurs. Yeah, I mean that is evolution. So obviously once again the egg came first. You know? Like of course the egg came first. Eggs were already there. Eggs hatched chickens one day. It's not one day because it's like the full course of evolution takes a bunch of time and many generations. 222 on the clock, on the timer. Um, but no, at some point his parents were not chickens, or grandparents were not chickens. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's how else do we? How else do you get? Do you think it was like God made chickens? And if so, why didn't Jesus have chickens? Or maybe he did. I don't know. Mesopotamia was kind of some of the first civilization, right? They weren't necessarily farming in the same way that we were, but they were beginning to domesticate animals at the time. The animals were a lot different than they also typical farm animals, you know, not the same as they had back then. No, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that. But again, if this is an argument on when which came first, the chicken or the egg is still always going to be the answer because eggs existed before chickens, right? And then it's like you can still say, "Oh, but it's about the chicken," but like again, at some point, whatever hatched the chicken wasn't a chicken, right? At some point, yeah. Yeah, it's mostly just silly, and people are like, "But that's not what it means." But like, isn't it though? Right. There you go. Cause yeah, because chicken eggs are very specific because well, they're kind of like any bird egg, but they're pretty big, right? Like most birds lay well, it depends on the bird, I guess. Because people will eat other eggs, but like quail eggs, I'm pretty sure are smaller than chicken eggs. But we also like grow them. Well, okay, this is America. Um, they make extra large chicken eggs, which is so weird, right? How do you force a chicken to fucking okay, either way, it's always going to be egg, right? Even if it is just some silly theoretical, the chicken or chicken egg, still egg. You can't have the chicken without the egg, and the egg just would have come from someone else and been there regardless of the chicken. Yeah, you're not supposed to take these questions literally. That's why I was cracking up while I was talking about it. Um, because if you did, there would be an answer, and that is the answer. It's always still gonna be the egg. You know, isn't that funny? Um, when you came in the air, it's a good book, but it's a better show. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, the books came first. These were published in like 2000, 2001, which I looked up all the vampire content, and these books were written before Twilight. Twilight wasn't till like 2005. pretty sure. This came out in 2001. So, Twilight jokes? No, no, no. You make True Blood jokes. Okay, just to clarify. The show is really good. I like the show better than I like the books. There's a lot of things that are a bit different. So I would say there's definitely spoilers in the book when referring to the show. There's a lot of stuff in the book that never happens in the show, and a lot of stuff that happens in the show that is not in the books. I love fairies. It's funny you say that, and I had this little grin because I don't like spoilers for anything, no matter how old it is. But yeah, I know about fairies. What'd you see? See, this is it's like a vampire book, but it's like a lot of supernaturals. Like that's kind of the whole point of these books is that there's just like a world where supernaturals live, but the main characters are vampires, you know? Or a lot of them, not a human main characters also. So far I think the third book was my favorite. Yeah, third book's my favorite. But there's like seven, I think. So we need to find, because I get used copies of these books, because why not? Save the paper. And also, sometimes you read a book once, and what do you do with it? Maybe read it again if it's good enough. Oh, I love that. That makes a lot of sense. You should watch True Blood. Again, I don't want to spoil anything too much, but the way you're describing it, you should watch True Blood, which is what I'm gonna. Maybe you can listen to it, but I don't. Like I said, I don't have the later two books. Whoa, there's way more than seven. Not way more. I'm sorry, that was an exaggeration. There's 10. No, there can't be 10. This would be 5 and 5. There's 11. Wait, yeah, there's 11 of them. 12 if you can count the compilation. And then there's also another one, companion. So there's 13. And then there's 4 anthologies. I don't know what that means in this context, but there's 4 more books. And then she's got some crime. Oh, Ace Anthologies, edited by Charlene. I think it's a separate series. She wrote 4 more, or edited 4 more. And then there's Berkeley Prime Crime Books. 2 of those. Harper Connolly Mysteries. The Lily Bard Mysteries. The Aurora Teagarden Mysteries. Wow, she writes a lot of books. I wonder how much of it she does herself and how an editor does. But it doesn't even say who the editor is. It's interesting. As someone who writes books, I find it very hard to finish a novel. And so it always amazes me, these authors like Dean Koontz, whatever his name is. I would never read any of his books. But one time I saw someone's library collection and he has written so many goddamn books. And it's like, damn, dude, that's impressive. Like, I gotta give it up to anybody who can just bust out books, especially when they're like good selling books. Wild. And I feel like it's easier to write a series, but the fact that she's written multiple series is actually so interesting to me. Okay, I'm in reading mode now. Um, you have to be careful with fairies, apparently. I always knock on wood, and that's a call to the fairies that live in the wood. Um, Stephen King, yeah, that's another one. I don't know how many books he's written, but I bet you it's not as many as Dean Koontz or whatever the fuck his name is. Um, but Stephen King novels are so unique. in his stories, and to write horror, I think is really hard. To personally find it very. Um, but you might owe them. The Fae try to trick people sometimes, um, and always offer them things and never take anything without offering them. Who? Stephen King? Wow. Wow. That's crazy, dude. That is fucking crazy. But in like a cool way that I, again, even as a writer, I feel like maybe it might have a little to do with like ADHD for me, not being able to finish stuff because I start a whole bunch. I'm going to see. Wow, I didn't realize Dean Koontz is like the same age. How many? I want to know. Books this book. I hate that this is fucking Yahoo. He's published over 105. Hold it. Um, oh, but that include no, just novels alone. He's published over 105 novels and a number of novellas and collections of short stories. Wow. I didn't realize he was as old as he is, though. Yeah, Dean Koontz has written a lot of fucking books, and I've never read any of them, nor do I plan to. That's interesting that they have his nonfiction work in a different category, but even more interesting that he published under another name, unless it was like before. It would seem strange to be after, right? So I wonder if it was like his first era career or something. I mean, I've done that, but I've only ever written or finished poetry and prose books. I have a novel I was working on, and I'm not sure I want to keep going with it. It was written at a weird time in my life, so I read back on the writing, and it requires so much editing that I'm like, I should either scrap this or like start it over. But it's probably like way too much, like probably 32 pages already, which is a lot when you're typing. Um, I'm like, maybe it's not worth completely starting over, so it's just on pause perpetually. You know, it's like I was started writing a screenplay, and I'm like, this is more TV show material than movie material because there's way too much going on. I don't think I have the capacity to write an entire TV script for what? You know, like you gotta just pick and choose sometimes. So poetry comes very easy to me and it's easier to finish. Oh, that's interesting. I got so many goddamn names is the funny thing, or something I find fun. Okay, I'm reading. I'm gonna roll ads. I think I'll just roll like a. No, I'm gonna take 3 minutes. Even though it's only been 30 minutes, and then I'm gonna start reading this book because we are addies. Because we are in the reading category. It's already been 30 minutes. I said 20. Okay, so I'll be right back. Be good. When you came in the air. I love this song because I love True Blood. This is the theme song of True Blood, which is what we're reading. I don't know who you think you are, but before the night is through, I wanna do bad things with you. The theme song, like the title sequence, I should say, not just the song. Oh, sorry, I'm back. um, is very inspiring, and I think because the show was made in like 2007, pretty sure, maybe, yeah, 2007 it came out. The book was 2001, the show was 2007. If you watch just the title sequence, you can see how much it inspired like horror at that time. Hey, how are you? I'm about to start reading. You didn't miss anything. I just chatted for 30 minutes, but I mean, I talk to you all the time. um, so here I am, came to read a little bit of this Sookie Stackhouse. Bow, 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 bow. This is what the show True Blood is based off of. So it's reading night because I get too exhausted when I do tarot and chatting on here to the point where I gotta take a fucking month off to recover. Do you guys want to hear the reviews of the book? No, I don't give a fuck. His name was Mike. You know, like I don't give a fuck. What We Do in the Shadows also was inspired by True Blood. Y'all should really watch True Blood. My thanks and appreciation go to the people who thought this book was a good idea. Dean James, Tony L.P. Kellner, and Gary and Susan Nolan. Wow, I can't believe she did that to them. Gary and Susan Nolan. Wow. You'll know why that's relevant later. Book 2, I believe. I've been waiting for the vampire for years when he walked into the bus. Should I read this in a southern accent? Is my southern accent good enough? We gotta find a happy place. I don't know what people from Louisiana sound like, but I'm just trying to do kind of like a Joy Turner. She from Georgia. And a little bit of my Texan in there. Is that basically what people is it not good enough? Should we read it in a southern accent, even if I don't know? Should I listen? Wait, why don't I just be like Sookie? She doesn't really have a very strong accent. Well, she does, but she just kind of talks like this. But it's not even that much. All right, so we'll go with the southern accent. I've been waiting for the vampire for years when he walked into the bar. Ever since vampires came out of the coffin, as they laughingly put it 2 years ago, I'd hoped one would come to Bon Ton. We had all the other minorities in our little town. Why not the newest, the legally recognized undead? But rural northern Louisiana wasn't too tempted to vampires, apparently. On the other hand, New Orleans was a real center for them. Whole Anne Rice thing, right? It's not that long of a drive from Bon Ton to New Orleans, and everyone who came in the bar said that if you threw a rock on a street corner, you'd hit one, though you'd better not. But I was waiting for my own vampire. You can tell I don't get out much, and it's not because I'm not pretty. I am. I'm blonde and blue eyed and 25. Why can't we get to page 2? Got it. Okay. See, this is what I was saying is like some of the stuff seems prejudiced. Like it's the South, but the show does a way better job of like, yes, it's the South, but we still have our stance as people, you know? And there's just not the sense of that in the book as much. I'm blonde and blue eyed and 25, and my legs are strong, and my bosom is substantial, and I have a waspy waistline. I looked good in the warm weather waitress outfit Sam picked for us, black shorts, white t shirt, white socks, black Nikes. But I have a disability. That's how I try to think of it. The bar patrons just say I'm crazy. Either way, the result is that I'm almost never have a date. So little treats count a lot with me. And he sat at one of my tables, vampire. I knew immediately what he was. It amazed me when no one else turned around to stare. They couldn't tell, but to me, his skin had a little glow, and I just knew. I could have danced with joy, and in fact, I did do a little step right there by the bar. Sam Merlot, my boss, looked up from the drink he was mixing and gave me a tiny smile. I grabbed my tray and pad and went over to the vampire's table. I hoped that my lipstick was still even and my ponytail was still neat. Kind of tense, and I could feel my smile yanking the corners of my mouth. He seemed lost in thought, and I had a chance to give him a good once over before he looked up. He was a little under 6 feet, I estimated. He had thick brown hair, combed straight back and brushed in his collar, and his long sideburns seemed curiously old fashioned. He was pale, of course. Hey, he was dead if you believe the old tales. The politically correct theory, the one the vamps themselves publicly backed, that it had this guy was the victim of a virus that left him apparently dead for a couple of days and thereafter allergic to sunlight, silver, and garlic. The details depended on which newspaper you read. They were all full of vampire stuff these days. Anyway, his lips were lovely, sharply sculpted, and he had arched, dark brows. His nose swooped down right out of that arc like a prince's in a Byzantine mosaic. When he finally looked up, I saw his eyes were even darker than his hair, and the whites were incredibly white. What can I get you? I asked happily, almost beyond words. He raised his eyebrows. Do you have that bottled synthetic blood? He asked. No, I'm so sorry. Sam's got some on order. Should be in next week. Then red wine, please, he said, as his voice was cool and clear like a stream over smooth stones. I laughed out loud. It was too perfect. Don't mind Sookie, mister. She's crazy, came a familiar voice from the booth against the wall. All my happiness deflated, though I could feel the smile still straining my lips. The vampire was staring at me, watching the life go out of my face. I'll get your wine right away, I said, and strode off, not even looking at Mac Rattray's mug face. He was there almost every night, and he and his wife, Denise, I called them the rat couple. They'd done their best to make me miserable since they moved in the rented trailer at the Four Tracks corner. I had hoped they'd blow out of Bon Tom as suddenly as they'd blown in. When they first came into Merlot's, I very rudely listened into their thoughts. I know, pretty low class of me. But I get bored like everyone else. And though I spend most of my time blocking out the thoughts of other people that try to pass through my brain, sometimes I just give in. So I knew something about the rat trays that maybe no one else did. For one thing, I knew they'd been in jail, though I didn't know why. For another, I read the nasty thoughts Mac Rattray had entertained about yours truly. And then I'd heard it in Denise's thoughts that she'd abandoned a baby she had 2 years before. A baby that wasn't Mac's. And they didn't tip either. Sam poured a glass of the house red wine, looking over at the vampire's table as he put it on my tray. When Sam looked back at me, I could tell he too knew our new customer was undead. Sam's eyes are Paul Newman blue, as opposed to my own hazy blue gray. Sam is blond too, but his hair is wiry, and his blonde is almost sort of a hot red gold. He is always a little sunburned, and though he looks slight in his clothes, I've seen him unload trucks with his shirt off, and he has plenty of upper body strength. I never listen to Sam's thoughts. He's my boss. I've had to quit jobs before because I found out things I didn't want to know about my boss. But Sam didn't comment. He just gave me the wine. I checked the glass to make sure it was sparkly clean, made my way back to the vampire's table. Your wine, sir, I said ceremoniously and placed it carefully on the table exactly in front of him. He looked at me again, and I stared into his lovely eyes while I had the chance. Enjoy, I said proudly. Behind me, Mac Rattray yelled, Hey, Sookie, we need another pitcher of beer here. I sighed and turned to take the empty pitcher from Rat's table. Denise was fine and formed, and I had noticed wearing a halter top and short shorts, hair a mess of brown hair flipping around in her head, fashionable tangles. Denise wasn't truly pretty, but she was so flashy and confident that it took a while to figure that out. A little while later, to my dismay, I saw the rat trays had moved over to the vampire's table. They were talking at him. I couldn't see that he wasn't responding a lot, but he wasn't leaving either. Look at that, I said disgustingly to Arlene, my fellow waitress. Arlene is a redhead and freckled and 10 years older than me, and she's been married 4 times. She has 2 kids, and from time to time, I think she considers me her third. New guy, huh? She said with small interest. Arlene is currently dating Renee Lanier, and I thought, and even, no, I'm sorry. And though I can't see the attractions, she seems pretty satisfied. I think Renee was her second husband. Oh, he's a vampire, I said, just having to share my delight with someone. Really? Here? Well, just think, she said, smiling a little to show she appreciated my pleasure. Can't be too bright, though, honey, if he's with the rats. On the other hand, Denise is giving him quite a show. I figured it out after Arlene made it plain to me. She's much better at sizing up sexual situations than I am due to her experience and my lack. The vampire was just hungry. I always heard that the synthetic blood the Japanese had developed kept vampires up to par as far as nutrition, but it didn't really satisfy their hunger, which is why they were unfortunate incidents from time to time. That was the vampire euphemism for the bloody slaying of a human. And here was Denise Rattray stroking her throat, turning her neck from side to side. What a bitch. My brother Jason came into the bar and then sauntered over to give me a hug. He knows women like a man who's good to his family and also kind to the disabled, so hugging me is a double whammy of recommendation. Not that Jason needs many more points than he has just by being himself. He's handsome. He sure can be mean too, but most women seem quite willing to overlook that. Hey sis, how's Gran? Oh, good. I'm glad. It's kinda nice. I've already read this book, so I don't mind it at all, you know? I wonder how many people will, like, tune in to me reading in the Southern accent and not realize that that's not how I sound. Cheers. Like I said, I got the first 3 books, but after this book, I'm gonna let people vote on the next book anyway. It might be the same 4 or the same 3 with the 4th one, but we'll see. I might switch it up, put different books on there. So how's Gran? She's okay, about the same. Come by to see. I will. Who's loose tonight? Look for yourself. I noticed that when Jason began to glance around, there was a flutter of female hands to hair, blouses, lips. Hey, I see Deanne. She free? She's here with a trucker from Hammond. He's in the bathroom. Watch it. Jason grinned at me, and I marveled that the other women could not see the selfishness of that smile. Even Arlene tucked in her shirt when Jason came in. After 4 husbands, she should have known a little bit about evaluating men. The other waitress I worked with, Dawn, tossed her hair and straightened her back to make her boobs stand out. Jason gave her an amiable wave. She pretended to sneer. She's on the outs with Jason, but she still wants him to notice her. I got really busy. Everyone came to Merlotte's on Saturday night for some portion of the evening, so I lost track of my vampire for a while. When I next had a moment to check on him, he was talking to Denise. Mac was looking at him with an expression so avid that I became worried. I went closer to the table, staring at Mac. Finally, I let my guard down and listened. Mac and Denise had been in jail for vampire draining. Deeply upset, I nevertheless automatically carried a pitcher of beer and some glasses to a raucous table of 4. Since vampire blood was supposed to be temporary relief symptoms of illness and increased sexual potency, kind of like no, some kind of drug, prednisone. Prednisone and Viagra rolled into one. There was a huge black market for genuine, undiluted vampire blood. Where there's a market, there are suppliers. In this case, I just learned the scummy rat couple had formerly trapped vampires and drained them, selling these little vials of blood for as much as $200 apiece. It had been the drug of choice for at least 2 years now. Some buyers went crazy after drinking pure vampire blood, but that didn't slow the market any. Drained vampire didn't last long, as a rule. Drainers left the vampires staked or simply dumped them out in the open. When the sun came up, that was all she wrote. Time to time, you read about the tables being turned when the vampire managed to get free. Then you got your dead drainers. Now, my vampire was getting up and leaving with the rats. Mac met my eyes, and I saw him looking distinctly startled at the expression on my face. He turned away, shrugging me off like everyone else. That made me mad, really mad. What should I do? Well, I struggled with myself. They were out the door. Would the vampire believe me if I ran after them and told them? No one else did. Or if by chance they did, they hated and feared me for reading the thoughts I concealed in people's brains. Arlene had begged me to read her fourth husband's mind when he'd come to pick her up one night because she was pretty certain he was thinking of leaving her and the kids, but I wouldn't because I wanted to keep that one friend I had. And even Arlene hadn't been able to ask me directly because that would be admitting I had this gift, this curse. People couldn't admit it. They had to think I was crazy, which is sometimes I almost was. So I dithered, confused and frightened and angry, and then I knew I just had to act. I was goaded by the look Mac had given me, as if I was negligible. I slid down the bar to Jason, where he was sweeping Deanne off her feet. She didn't take much sweeping, popular opinion had it. Trucker from Hammond was glowering from her other side. Jason, I said urgently. He turned to give me a warning glare. Listen, is that chain still in the back of the pickup? Never leave home without it, he said lazily, his eyes scanning my face for signs of trouble. Going to fight, Sookie? Smiled at him, so used to grinning that it was easy. Sure hope not, I said cheerfully. Hey, you need help? After all, he was my brother. No thanks, I said, trying to sound reassuring, and I slipped over to Arlene. Listen, I got to leave a little early. My tables are pretty thin. Can you cover for me? Didn't think I'd ever ask Arlene such a thing, though I covered for her many times. She too offered me help. That's okay, I said. I'll be back in if I can. Clean my area, I'll do your trailer. Arlene nodded her red mane enthusiastically. I pointed to the employee door to myself and made my fingers walk to tell Sam where I was going. He nodded. He didn't look happy. So out the back door I went, trying to make my feet quiet on the gravel. The employee parking lot is at the rear of the bar, through a door leading into the storeroom. The cook's car was there, and Arlene's and Dawn's and mine. To my right, at the east, Sam's pickup was sitting in front of his trailer. I went out the graveled employee parking area onto the black top that surfaced a much larger customer lot to the west of the bar. Woods surrounding the clearing in which Merlot stood at the edge of the parking lot was mostly gravel. Sam kept it well lit, and the surrealistic glare of the high parking lot lights made everything look strange. I saw the rat couple's dented red sports car, so I knew they were close. Found Jason's truck at last. It was black with custom aqua and pink swirls on the side. Sure did love to be noticed. I pulled myself up by the tailgate and rummaged around in the bed for his chain, a thick length of links that he carried in case of a fight. I looped it in and carried it pressed to my body so it wouldn't chink. I thought a second. The only halfway private spot to which the rat trays could have lured a vampire was at the end of the parking lot where the trees actually overhung the cars. So I crept in that direction, trying to move fast and low. Paused every few seconds and listened. Soon I heard a groan and the faint sounds of voices. Snake between the cars, and I spotted them right where I figured they'd be. Vampire was down on the ground in his back, his face contorted in agony. The gleams of chains crisscrossed his wrists and ran down to his ankles. Silver. There were two little vials of blood already on the ground beside Denise's feet, and I watched as she fixed a new vacutainer to the needle. Tourniquet above his elbow dug cruelly into his arm. Their backs were to me, and the vampire hadn't seen me yet. I loosened the coiled chain so a good 3 feet of it swung free. Who to attack first? They were both small and vicious. I remember Mac's contemptuous dismissal at the fact that he could never that and the fact that he never leave me a tip. Mac first. I never actually been in a fight before. Somehow, I was positively looking forward to it. I leapt out from behind a pickup and swung the chain. It thwacked across Mac's back, and he knelt beside his victim. He screamed and jumped up. After a glance, Denise set about getting the third vacuum plugged. Mac's hand dipped down to his boot and came up shining. I gulped. He had a knife in his hand. Oh no, I said, and grinned at him. You crazy bitch, he screamed. He sounded like he was looking forward to using the knife. I was too involved to keep my mental guard up, and I had a clear flash of what Mac wanted to do to me. It really drove me crazy. I went for him with every intention of hurting him as badly as I could, but when he was ready for me and jumped forward with the knife while I was swinging the chain, he sliced my arm and just missed it. The chain, on its recoil, wrapped around his skinny neck like a lover. Mac's yell of triumph turned into a gurgle. He dropped the knife and clawed at the links with both hands. Losing air, he dropped to his knees on the rough pavement, yanking the chain from my hand. Well, there went Jason's chain. I swooped down and scooped up Mac's knife, holding it like I knew how to use it. Denise had been lunging forward, looking like a redneck witch in the lines and shadows of the security lights. She stopped in her tracks when she saw I had Mac's knife. She cursed and railed and said terrible things. I waited till she run down to say, Get out now. Denise stared holes of hate in my head. She tried to scoop up the vials of blood, but I hissed at her to leave him alone. So she pulled Mac to his feet. He was still making choking, gurgling sounds and holding the chain. Denise kind of dragged him along to their car and shoved him in through the passenger side. Yanking some keys from her pocket, Denise threw herself in the driver's seat. As I heard the engine roar into life, suddenly I realized the rats had now had another weapon. Faster than I ever moved, I ran to the vampire's head and panted, Push with your feet. I grabbed him under the arms and yanked back with all my might, and he caught on and braced his feet and shoved. We were just inside the tree line when the red car came roaring down at us. Denise missed us by less than a yard when she had to swerve to avoid hitting a pine. Then I heard the big motor of the rat car receding in the distance. Oh, wow, I breathed and knelt by the vampire because my knees wouldn't hold me up anymore. I breathed heavily for just a minute, trying to get a hold of myself. Vampire moved a little, and I looked over. To my horror, I saw wisps of smoke coming from his wrist where the silver touched him. Oh, you poor thing, I said, angry at myself for not caring for him instantly. Still trying to catch my breath, I began to unwind the thin bands of silver, which all seemed to be a part of one very long chain. Poor baby, I whispered, never thinking until later how incordious that sounded. I have agile fingers, and I released his wrist pretty quickly. I wonder how the rats had distracted him when they got in position to put them on, and I could feel myself reddening as I pictured it. The vampire cradled in his arm to his chest while I worked on the silver wrapped around his legs. His ankles had fared better since the drainers hadn't troubled to pull up his jean legs and put the silver against his bare skin. Sorry I didn't get here faster, I said apologetically. You feel better in a minute, right? Do you want me to leave? No. That made me feel pretty good until he added, They might come back and I can't fight yet. His cool voice was uneven, but I couldn't exactly say I'd heard him panting. I made a sour face at him, and while he was recovering, I took a few precautions. I sat with my back to him. giving him some privacy. I know how unpleasant it is to be stared at when you're hurting. I hunkered down on the pavement, keeping watch on the parking lot. Several cars left and others came in, but none came down to our end by the woods. By the movement of the air around me, I knew when the vampire had sat up. He didn't speak right away. I turned my head to the left to look at him. He was closer than I thought. His big dark eyes looked into mine. His fangs had retracted. I was a little disappointed about that. Thank you, he said stiffly. So he wasn't thrilled about being rescued by a woman. Typical guy. Since he was being so ungracious, I felt like I could do something rude too, and I listened to him, opening my mind completely. And then I heard nothing. Oh, I said, hearing the shock in my own voice, hardly knowing what to say. I can't hear you. Thank you, the vampire said, moving his lips exaggeratingly. No, no, I can hear you speak, but. And in my excitement, I did something I ordinarily would never do because it was pushy and personal and revealed that I was disabled. I turned fully to him and put my hands on both sides of his white face, and I looked at him intently. I focused with all my energy. Nothing. It was like having to listen to the radio all the time to stations you didn't get to select, and then suddenly tuning into a wavelength you couldn't receive. It was heaven. His eyes were getting wider and darker, though he was holding absolutely still. Oh, excuse me, I said with a gasp of embarrassment. I snatched my hands away and resumed staring at the parking lot. I began babbling about Mac and Denise, all the time thinking how marvelous it would be to have a companion I could not hear unless he chose to speak out loud. How beautiful his silence was. So I figured I'd better come out here to see how you were, I concluded, and had no idea what I'd been saying. Came out here to rescue me. It was brave, he said in a voice so seductive it would have shivered Deanne right out of her red nylon panties. Now you cut that out, I said tartly, coming right down to the earth with a thud. He looked astonished for a whole second before his face returned to its white smoothness. Aren't you afraid to be alone with a hungry vampire? He asked, something arch and yet dangerous running beneath the words. Nope. Are you assuming that since you came to my rescue that you're safe? That I harbor an ounce of sentimental feeling after all these years? Vampires often turn on those who trust them. We don't have human values, you know. A lot of humans turn on those who trust them, I pointed out. I can be practical. I'm not a total fool. I held out my arm and turned my neck. While he'd been recovering, I'd been wrapping the rat's chain around my neck and arms. He shivered visibly. But there's a juicy artery in your groin, he said after a pause to regroup, his voice as slithery as a snake on a slide. Don't you talk dirty, I told him. I won't listen to that. Once again, we looked at each other in silence. I was afraid I'd never see him again. After all, his first visit to Merlotte's hadn't exactly been a success, so I was trying to absorb every detail I could. I would treasure this encounter and rehash it for a long, long time. It was rare, a prize. I wanted to touch his skin again. Couldn't remember how it felt, but that would be going beyond some boundary of manners and also maybe start him going on seductive crap again. Would you like to drink the blood they collected? He asked unexpectedly. It would be a way for me to show my gratitude. Gestured at the stopper vials lying on the blacktop. Blood is supposed to improve your sex life and your health. I'm healthy as a horse, I told him honestly, and I have no sex life to speak of. You do what you want with it. You could sell it, he suggested, but I thought he was just waiting to see what I'd say about that. I wouldn't touch it, I said, insulted. You're different, he said. What are you? He seemed to be going through a list of possibilities in his head from the way he was looking at me. To my pleasure, I could not hear one of them. Well, I'm Sookie Stackhouse, and I'm a waitress, I told him. What's your name? I thought I could at least ask that without being presuming. Bill, he said. Before I could stop myself, I rocked back onto my butt with laughter. The vampire Bill, I said. I thought it might be Antoine or Basil or Langford. Bill? I hadn't laughed so hard in a long time. Well, see ya, Bill. I got to get back to work. I could feel the tense grin snap back into place when I thought of Merlot's. I put my hand on Bill's shoulder and pushed up. It was rock hard, and I was on my feet so fast I had to stop myself from stumbling. I examined my socks to make sure their cuffs were exactly even, and I looked up and down my outfits, checked for wear and tear during the fight with the rats. I dusted off my bottom since I'd been sitting on the dirty pavement, gave Bill a wave as I started across the parking lot. It had been a stimulating evening, one with a lot of food for thought. Felt almost as cheerful as my smile when I considered it. But Jason was going to be mighty angry about the chain. I know, right? Got to a little bit. I was gonna try to read the first chapter if you guys are still feeling it. I don't know how many pages that would be. Whoa, a lot of pages it seems. Wow. We could do it. Holy fucking wow. So it's 38 pages and we're on page 15. It's good to see you too. Thanks for popping by. Um, so we're on page 15 and the first chapter is 38 pages. Do you think we can do it? Do you think we can do it? Who's in? Who's with me? Who's down? I kind of am. I just can't like talk so incessantly. I'm probably gonna roll the ads every 30 minutes instead of every hour. A lot different when you're just reading, you know? I don't know why. I don't wanna, you know what I'm saying? So I'm about to roll some ads just because I like to pause when I get to a break in the text. I don't know why I'm showing the computer. Like this is where we're at. So that's when it's like, oh, I can stop and pick it back up. So yeah, 15 pages in. What do we think of the book, by the way? It's pretty good, right? It's like fun. We haven't even really got to any vampire stuff yet, except for like the bad stuff. But yeah, this is just the first scene of True Blood, pretty much. So 3 minutes, I will be back. We're gonna roll some ads and enjoy your smoke break, guys. Back in three with more Cookie Stack. All right. Sorry, I took an extended break, but Oily, I don't think you saw these. I gotta show you my sunglasses real quick that I just got, even though I can't really wear them because they're not prescription and I don't own contacts. But I don't think you saw these the other day because you weren't on stream and I don't think I posted them. Came back to show you these. I'm not so sick. Do you not love them or what? I know. I know. I wore them when I was streaming the other day, but I wasn't reading. I can't read them. Well, maybe no, I can't read in these. That's so fucking obnoxious. Aren't they cool? I don't mind it though. It makes the screen less bright. Yeah. Swag. I know, right? They're so fucking cool. I had to get them. You can understand. They were like very cheap too. But they don't seem cheap is the thing. I should say they were inexpensive, not cheap. Um, but these were so cool that I had to, even though I can't really wear them. But I love them. I'm obsessed. And I knew you would appreciate them, so I had to come show you. But now we shall resume. The goal is to finish chapter 1, but we've got, what, 23 more pages, and I've only read 15 so far. So we will see if we get to our goal. I'm going to drink some water before I forget. Good reminder for y'all to do the same, even if you're reading a book right now. Wow. Water. 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 Gotta love water. All right, is this New York or is this the South? We need to get back to our fucking Southern accent. I can't wait for people to just randomly join in on my reading stream and then be like, oh, damn, she doesn't sound like that. Also, when I had the sunglasses on, vampires in the Bronx. Yeah. Primary colors blue, yellow, red. Unintentional, but wow. Very cool. Very cool. Pardon me, chugging that water. Okay, are we ready to get back to book? I am. After work that night, I drove home, which is only about 4 miles south from the bar. Jason had been gone, and so had Deanne when I got back to work, and that had been another good thing. I was reviewing the evening as I drove to my grandmother's house where I lived. It was right before Tall Pine Cemetery, which lies off a narrow 2-lane parish road. Great 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 grandfather had started the house, and he'd had ideas about privacy, so to reach it, you had to turn off the parish road into the driveway, go through some woods, and then you would arrive at the clearing in which the house stood. It's sure not any historic landmark since most of the oldest parts have been ripped down and replaced over the years. And of course, it's got electricity and plumbing and insulation and all that good modern stuff, but it still has a tin roof that gleams blindingly on sunny days. When the roof needed to be replaced, I wanted to put regular roofing tiles on it, but my grandmother said no. Though I was paying, it's her house, so naturally, tin it was. Historical or not, I lived in this house since I was about 7, and I visited often before then, so I loved it. It was just a big old family home, too big for Granny and me, I guess. It had been broad front covered by a screened in porch, and it was painted white, Granny being a traditionalist all the way. I went through the big living room strewn with battered furniture arranged to suit us, and down the hall to finish to the first bedroom on the left, the biggest. Adele Hale Stackhouse, my grandmother, was propped up in her high bed, about a million pillows padding her skinny shoulders. She was wearing a long sleeved cotton nightgown, even in the warmth of the spring night, and her bedside lamp was still on. There was a book propped in her lap. Hey, I said. Hi, honey. My grandmother is very small and very old, but her hair is still thick, so white it almost has the faintest of green tinges. Wears it kind of rolled against her neck during the day, but at night it's looser and braided. In braids, it says braided. I looked at the cover of her book. You reading Danielle Steele again? Oh, that woman can sure tell a story. My grandmother's great pleasures were reading Danielle Steele, watching her soap operas, which she called her stories, and attending meetings of the myriad clubs she belonged to all her adult life. It seemed her favorites were the Descendants of the Glorious Dead and the Bon Tom Garden Society. Guess what's happening tonight? I asked her. What, you got a date? No, I said, working to keep a smile on my face. A vampire came into the bar. Oh, did he have fangs? I'd seen them glisten in the parking lot when the rats were draining him, but there was no need to describe that to Gran. Sure, but they were retracted. A vampire right here in Bon Ton? Granny was as pleased as punch. Did he bite anybody in the bar? Oh, no, Gran. He just sat and had a glass of red wine. Well, he ordered it, but he didn't drink it. I think he just wanted some company. Wonder where he stays. He wouldn't be too likely to tell anyone that. No, Gran said, thinking about it a moment. Guess not. Did you like him? Now that was kind of a hard question. I mulled it over. I don't know. He was real interesting, I said cautiously. I'd surely love to meet him. I wasn't surprised Gran said this because she enjoyed new things almost as much as I did. She wasn't one of those reactionaries who decided vampires were damned right off the bat. But I'd better go to sleep now. I was just waiting for you to come home before I turned out my light. Bent over to give Gran a kiss and said, Night night. I half closed my door on the way out and heard the clicks of the lamp as she turned it off. My cat Tina came from wherever she'd been sleeping to rub against my leg, and I picked her up and cuddled her for a while before putting her out for the night. I glanced at the clock. It was almost 2 o'clock, and my bed was calling me. My room was right across the hall from Gran's. When I first used the room after my folks died, Gran had moved my bedroom furniture from their house so it'd feel more homey. And here it was still, the single bed and vanity in white paint wood, the small chest of drawers. I turned my own light, shuttered the door, and began taking off my clothes. I had at least 5 pair of black shorts and many white t-shirts, since those tended to get stained so easily. No telling how many pairs of white socks were rolled up in my drawer. So it didn't have to do with the wash tonight. I was too tired for a shower. I did brush my teeth and wash the makeup off my face, slap some moisturizer, and take the band out of my hair. Hi, why are you making fun of me? You knew I was going to be reading. Um, I crawled into bed in my favorite Mickey Mouse sleep t shirt, which came almost to my knees. I turned on my side like I always do, and I relished in the silence of the room. Almost everyone's brain is turned off in the wee hours of the night, and the vibrations are gone. The intrusions do not have to be repelled. With such peace, I only had time to think of the vampire's dark eyes. Then I fell into a deep sleep of exhaustion. By lunchtime the next day, I was in my folding aluminum. Oh, it's chased out. Okay. It's a chair she's describing. I was like, what the fuck am I reading right now? By lunchtime the next day, I was in my folding aluminum chase out in the front yard, getting browner by the second. I was in my favorite white strapless two piece, and it was just a little roomier than last summer, so I was pleased as punch. She said that twice already. Then I heard a vehicle coming down the drive, and Jason's black truck with its pink aqua blazons had pulled up within a yard of my feet. Jason climbed down. Did I mention the truck sports those high tires? Stalked toward me. He was wearing his usual work clothes, a khaki shirt and pants, and he had sheathed a knife clipped to his belt like most of the country workers did. Just by the way he walked, I knew he was in a huff. I put my dark glasses on. Why didn't you tell me you beat up the rat trays last night? My brother threw himself into an aluminum yard chair by my chase. Where's Gran? He said belatedly. Hanging out the laundry, I said. Gran used the dryer in a pinch, but she really liked hanging the wet clothes out in the sun. My grandma used to do that too. Of course, the clothesline was in the backyard where the clothesline should be. She's fixing country fried steak and sweet potatoes and green beans she put up last year for lunch, I added, knowing that would distract Jason a little bit. I'd hoped Gran stayed out back. I didn't want her to hear this conversation. Keep your voice low, I reminded him. Rene Lanier couldn't wait till I got to work this morning to tell me all about it. He was over at the Rat Train's trailer last night to buy him some weed, and Denise drove up like she wanted to kill someone. Renee said he'd like to have gotten killed. She was so mad. What? He'd like to have gotten killed. She was so mad. It took both Renee and Denise to get Mac into the trailer, and they took him to the hospital in Monroe. Jason glared at me accusingly. Did Renee tell you that Mac came after me with a knife? I asked, deciding attacking was the best way of handling this. I could tell Jason's pique was due in large part to the fact that he had heard about this from someone else. If Denise told Renee, he didn't mention it to me, Jason said slowly, and I saw his handsome face darken with rage. Came after you with a knife? So I had to defend myself, I said, as it was matter of fact. And he took your chain. This was all true, if a little skewed. I came in to tell you, I continued, but by the time I got back in the bar, you were gone with Deanne, and since I was fine, it just didn't seem worth tracking you down. I knew you'd feel obliged to go after him if I told you about the knife, I added diplomatically. There was a lot more truth in that, since Jason dearly loves a fight. What the hell were you doing out there anyway? He asked, but he had relaxed, and I knew he was accepting this. Did you know that, in addition to selling drugs, the rats are vampire drainers? Now he was fascinated. No? So? Well, one of my customers last night was a vampire, and they were draining him out in Merlot's parking lot. I couldn't have that. There's a vampire here in Bonton? Yep. Even if you don't want a vampire for your best friend, you can't let trash like the rest drain them. It's not like siphoning gas out of a car. And they would have left him out in the woods to die. Though the rats hadn't told me their intentions, that was my bet. Even if they'd put him under cover so he could survive the day, a drained vampire took at least 20 years to recover. At least that's what one said to Oprah. And that's if another vampire took care of him. The vampires were in the bar when I was there? Jason asked, dazzled. Uh-huh. The dark-haired guy sitting with the rats. Jason grinned at my epitaph for the epithet for the raise. Epithet? Epithet? Is that like no, like an epitaph? Is that how you spell it? Epithet? For the rat trays. But he hadn't let go the night before yet. How'd you know he was a vampire? He asked, but when he looked at me, I could tell he was wishing he had bitten his tongue. I just knew, I said in my flattest voice. Right, and we shared a whole unspoken conversation. Homolka doesn't have a vampire, Jason said thoughtfully. He tilted his face back to catch the sun, and I knew we were off to dangerous ground. True, I agreed. Homolka was the town Bonton loved to hate. We've been rivals in football, basketball, and historical significance for generations. Neither does Rodale, Gran said from behind us, and Jason and I both jumped. I give Jason credit. He jumps up and gives Gran a hug every time he sees her. Gran, you got enough food in the oven for me? You and two others, Gran said. Our grandmother smiled up at Jason. She was not blind to his faults or mine, but she loved him. I just got a phone call from Everly Mason. She was telling me you hooked up with Deanne last night. Boy, oh boy, can't do anything in this town without getting caught, Jason said, but he wasn't really angry. That Deanne, Grant said warningly, as we all stared into the house. She's been pregnant one time I know of. You just take care she doesn't have one of yours, you'll be paying the rest of your life. Of course, that may be the only way I get a great grandchild. Gran had the food ready on the table, so after Jason hung up his hat, we sat down and said grace. Then Gran and Jason began gossiping with each other, though they called it catching up, about people in our little town and parish. My brother worked for the county, supervising road crews. It seemed to me like Jason's day consisted of driving around in a county pickup, clocking off work, and then driving around all night in his own pickup. Renee was one of the work crews Jason oversaw, and they'd been to high school together. They hung around with Hoyt Fortenberry a lot. Sookie, I had to replace the hot water heater in the house, Jason said suddenly. He lives in my parents' old house, the one we've been living in when they died in a flash flood. We lived with Gran after that, but when Jason got through his 2 years of college and went to work for the county, he moved back into the house, which on paper is half mine. Need any money on that? I asked. No, I got it. We both make salaries, but we also have little income from a fund established when an oil well was sunk on my parents' property. It paid out It played out in a few years, but my parents and then Graham made sure the money was invested. It saved Jason and me a lot of struggle, that pattern. I don't know how Gran could have raised us if it hadn't been for that money. She was determined not to sell any land, but her own income is not much more than Social Security. That's one reason I don't get an apartment. If I get groceries when I'm living with her, that's reasonable to her, but if I buy groceries and bring them to her house and leave them on her table and go home to my house, that's charity and it makes her mad. What kind did you get? I asked, just to show interest. He was dying to tell me. Jason's an appliance freak, and he wanted to describe his comparison shopping for a new water heater in detail. I listened with as much attention as I could muster, and then he interrupted himself. Hey, Sook, you remember Maudette Pickens? Sure, I said, surprised. We graduated in the same class. Somebody killed Maudette in her apartment last night. Grant and I were riveted. When? Grant asked, puzzled that he hadn't already heard. I just found her this very morning in her bedroom. Her boss tried to call her to find out why she hadn't shown up for work yesterday and today and got no answer. So he rode over there and got the manager up and they unlocked the place. You know, she had an apartment across from Deanne's. Bontemps had only one bona fide apartment complex and a three building, 2-story U-shaped grouping, so we knew exactly where he meant. She got killed there? Fell ill. I remember Maudette clearly. Maudette had a heavy jaw and a square bottom, pretty black hair, and husky shoulders. Maudette had been a plotter, never bright or ambitious. I thought I recalled her working at the Grab It Quick gas station convenience store. Yeah, she'd been working there for at least a year, I guess, Jason confirmed. How was it done? My grandmother had that squinched. Give it to me quick look with the nice people ask for bad news. She had some vampire bites on her inner thighs, my brother said, looking down at his plate. But that wasn't what killed her. She was strangled. The aunt told me my dad liked to go to the vampire bar in Shreveport when she had a couple of days off, so maybe that's where she got the bites. Might have not been Sookie's vampire. Maudette was a fine banger. I felt queasy, imagining slow, chunky Maudette draped in the exotic black dress Fang bangers affected. What's that? Asked Gran. She must have missed Sally Jesse the day the phenomenon was explored. Men and women that hang around with vampires enjoy being bitten, vampire groupies. They don't last too long, I think, because they want to be bitten too much, and sooner or later they get that one bite too many. But a bite didn't kill Maudette. Graham wanted to be sure it had been straight. Nope, strangling. Jason had begun finishing his lunch. You always get gas at the Grab It? I asked. Sure, so do a lot of people. And didn't you hang around with Maudette some? Graham asked. Well, in a way of speaking, Jason said cautiously. I took that to mean he'd bedded Maudette when he couldn't find anyone else. I hope the sheriff doesn't want to talk to you, Grant said, shaking her head as if indicating no would make it less likely. What? Jason was turning red, looking defensive. You see Maudette in the store all the time. When you get your gas, you, so to speak, date her, and then she winds up dead in an apartment you're familiar with, I summarized. It wasn't much, but it was something, and there were so few mysterious homicides in Bontemps that I thought every stone would be turned in this investigation. I ain't the only one who fits the bill. Plenty of other guys get their gas there. All of them know Maudette. Yeah, but in what sense? Grant asked bluntly. She wasn't a prostitute, was she? So she would have talked about who she saw. She's just like to have a good time. She wasn't a pro. It was good of Jason to defend Maudette, considering what I knew of his selfish character. I began to think a little better of my big brother. She was kind of lonely, I guess, he added. Jason looked at both of us and then saw that we were surprised and touched. Speaking of prostitutes, he said hastily, There's one in Moreau specializes in vampires. She keeps a guy standing by with a stake in case one gets carried away. She drinks synthetic blood to keep her blood supply up. This was a pretty definite change of subject, so Gran and I tried to think of a question we could ask without being indecent. Wonder how much she charges, I ventured. And when Jason told us a figure he heard, we both gasped. Once we got off the topic of my dad's murder, lunch went about as usual, with Jason looking at his watch and exclaiming that he had to leave just when it was time to do the dang dishes. It doesn't say dang, but I threw it in there because it felt like it should. Um, but Gran's mind was still running on vampires. I found out. She came into my room later when I was putting on my makeup to go to work. How old do you reckon the vampire is, the one you met? I have no idea, Gran. I was putting on my mascara, looking wide eyed and trying to hold still so I wouldn't poke myself in the eye so my voice came out funny, as if I was trying out for a horror movie. Do you suppose he might remember the war? I didn't need to ask which war. After all, Gran was a charter member of the Descendants of the Glorious Dead. Could be, I said, turning my face from side to side to make sure my blush was even. You think he might come to talk to us about it? We could have a special meeting. At night, I reminded her. Oh, yes, it'd have to be. The Descendants usually met at noon at the library and bought a bag lunch. I thought about it. It would be plain rude to suggest to the vampire he ought to speak to Grant's Club because I'd saved his blood from drainers. But maybe he would offer if I gave him a little hint. I didn't like to, but I'd do it for Grant. I'll ask him the next time he comes in, I promised. At least he could come talk to me and maybe I could tape his recollections, Grant said. I could hear her mind clicking as she thought of what a coup that would be for her. It would possibly be so interesting to the other club members, she said piously. I stifled an impulse to laugh. I'll suggest it to him, I said. We'll see. When I laughed, Gran was clearly counting her chickens. I hadn't thought of Renee Lanier going to Sam with the story of the parking lot fight. Renee being a busy bee, though. When I got to work that afternoon, I assumed the agitation I felt in the air was due to Maudette's murder. I found out different. Sam hustled me into the storeroom the minute I came in. He was hopping with anger. He reamed me up one side and down the other. Sam had never been mad with me before, and soon I was on the edge of tears. And if you think a customer isn't safe, you tell me and I'll deal with it, not you, he was saying for the sixth time when I finally realized that Sam had been scared for me. I caught that rolling off him before I clamped down firmly on hearing Sam. Listening in on your own boss led to disaster. It never occurred to me to ask Sam or anyone else for help. And if you think someone's being harmed in our parking lot, your next move is to call the police, not step out there yourself like a vigilante, Sam huffed. His fair complexion, always ruddy, was redder than ever, and his wiry golden hair looked as if he hadn't combed it. Okay, I said, trying to keep my voice and I even and my eyes wide open so the tears wouldn't roll out. Are you going to fire me? No, no, he explained, apparently even angrier. I don't want to lose you. He gripped my shoulders and gave me a little shake. Then he stood looking at me with wide, crackling blue eyes, and I felt a surge of heat rush out from him. Touching accelerates my disability, makes it imperative that I hear the person touching me. Stared right into his eyes for a long moment, and then I remembered myself and I jumped back, and his hands dropped away. I whirled and left the storeroom, spooked. I learned a couple of disconcerting things. Sam desired me, and I couldn't hear his thoughts as clearly as I could hear other people's. I'd had waves of impressions of how he was feeling, but not thoughts. More like wearing a mood ring than getting a fax. So what do I do about either piece of information? Absolutely nothing. I never looked on Sam as bettable man before, or at least not bettable by me for a lot of reasons. But the simplest one was that I never looked at anyone that way, not because I didn't have hormones. Boy, do I have hormones. But they are constantly tamped down because sex for me is a disaster. Can you imagine knowing everything your sex partner is thinking? Right. Along the order of, gosh, look at that mole. Her butt's a little big. Girl, that is a good thing. The early 2000s was such a weird time. Talking about butts like they shouldn't be there. Like, sorry, I had ass in 2001, bitch. Okay, so anyways, yes, I was very young. It's just lifelong sentence, have ass. Sorry. Okay. Let's just keep reading. Um, I'm sorry. It was so distracting. That's what I'm saying. This book is like so mildly prejudiced and weird in so many very odd ways that I get that it's supposed to be some 25-year-old in the South in 2001. But it's like a little bit too real, Charlene. Like you could have just dialed it back a bit. Like why did you have to make her like this? Like you made her up. Like she did not have to be this bad, you know? Um where did we leave off? That's a little big. Couldn't get over it. Had to stop everything and say, "What the fuck, Charlene?" Wish she moved to the right a little. Why does she take the hint? And you get the idea. It's chilling to the emotions, believe me. And during sex, there is simply no way to keep a mental guard up. Another reason is I like Sam for a boss, and I like my job, which gets me out and keeps me active and earning so I won't turn into the recluse my grandmother fears I'll become. Working in an office is hard for me, and college was simply impossible because of the grim concentration necessary. It's just drained me. So right now, I wanted to mull over the rush of desire I'd felt for him. It wasn't like he made me verbal proposition or thrown me down to the storeroom floor. I'd felt his feelings, and I could ignore them if I choose. I appreciate the delicacy of this and wondered if Sam had touched me on purpose, if he actually knew what I was. I took care not to be alone with him, but I have to admit I was pretty shaken that night. The next two nights were better. Fell back into our comfortable relationship. I was relieved. I was disappointed. I was also run off my feet since Maudette's murder sparked a business boom at Merlot's. All sorts of rumors were buzzing around Bontemps, and the Shreveport news team did a little piece on Maudette Pickens' grisly death. Though I didn't attend her funeral, my grandmother did, and she said the church was jam packed. Poor lumpy Maudette with her bitten thighs was more interesting in death than she'd been in life. Like, why did she just call this bitch lumpy? Like, you literally wrote this. Y'all want to see her? I want to show you. This is who's saying this stuff. What in the. What are you fucking saying right now, Charlene? Like, you wrote this. Why? You know, the story would have been just as real without all this weird, like, fat shaming crap. But again, it's the sign of the times. It was a weird time in life. All right, so poor lumpy Maudette, whatever the fuck that means. Square ass. Like, what? Fuck, Suki. You're worried about hearing other people's thoughts. You should be worried about people hearing your thoughts. All right. Um. Okay. Sorry. The show is so much better. Like this is not a thing in the show. And that's why I like to reiterate that the books are not my favorite and I don't just back everything that she writes cuz they're ridiculous. But the show does not have this problem. The show is so much better than the books, honestly. But there's a lot of really interesting stuff in the books that don't happen in the show. And that's why it's like worth the read. Just saying. So, yeah. The first book, by the way, is the first season, pretty much. But then like the second and third book is the seasons, but there's more books than there are seasons of the show. So that's interesting. But I'm gonna keep reading because we got 10 more pages. Chapter 1. I was about to have 2 days off, and I was worried I'd miss connecting with the vampire Bill. I needed to relay my grandmother's request. He hadn't returned to the bar, and I began to wonder if he would. Mac and Denise hadn't been back in Merlotte's either, but Renee Lanier and Hoyt Fortenberry made sure I knew they'd threatened me with horrible things. Can't say I was seriously alarmed. Criminal trash like the rats roam the highways and trailer parks of America, not smart enough or moral enough to settle down productive living. They never made a positive mark on the world or amounted to a hill of beans to my way of thinking. I shrugged off Renee's warnings. But he sure enjoyed relaying them. Renee Lanier was small like Sam, but where Sam was ruddy and blond, Renee was swarthy and had a bushy head full of rough black hair threaded with gray. Renee often came by the bar to drink a beer and visit with Arlene because, as he was fond of telling everyone in the bar, she was his favorite ex-wife. He had three. Hoyt Fortenberry was more of a cipher than Renee. He was neither dark nor fair, neither big nor little. He always seemed cheerful and always tipped decent. He admired my brother Jason far beyond what Jason deserved, in my opinion. I was glad Renee and Hoyt weren't there the night the vampire returned. He sat at the table. Now that the vampire was actually in front of me, I felt a little shy. I'd forgotten the almost imperceptible glow of his skin. I exaggerated his height and the clear cut lines of his mouth. "What can I get you?" I asked. He looked up at me. I had forgotten, too, the depth of his eyes. He didn't smile or blink, he was so immobile. For the second time, I relaxed into his silence. When I let down my guard, I could feel my face relax. It was as good as getting a massage, I'm guessing. "What are you?" he asked me. It was the second time he wanted to know. "I'm a waitress," I said, again, deliberately misunderstanding him. I could feel my smile snap back into place again. A little bit of peace vanished. "Red wine," he ordered, as if he was disappointed. I couldn't tell by his voice. "Sure," I said. "Synthetic blood should come in the truck tomorrow. Listen, could I talk to you after work? I have a favor to ask you." "Of course. I mean, you're dead." And he sure didn't sound happy about it. "Not a favor from me." I was getting miffed myself. "From my grandmother. If you'll be up, well, I guess you will be, when I get off work at 1:30. Would you very much mind meeting me at the employee door at the back of the bar?" I nodded towards it, and my ponytail bounced across my shoulders. His eyes followed the movement of my hair. I'd be delighted. I didn't know if he was displaying courtesy Gran insisted was the standard in bygone times, or if he was plain old mocking me. I resisted the temptation to stick out my tongue at him or blow a raspberry. I spun on my heel and marched back to the bar. When I brought him his wine, he tipped me 20%. Soon after that, I looked over at his table only to realize he vanished. I wondered if he'd keep his word. Arlene and Dawn left before I was ready to go for one reason or another, mostly because all the napkin holders in my area proved to be half empty. As I retrieved my purse from the locked drawer in Sam's office where I stow it while I worked, I called goodbye to my boss. I could hear him clicking and clanking around in the men's room, probably trying to fix the leaky toilet. I stepped into the ladies' room for a second to check my hair and makeup. When I stepped outside, I noticed that Sam had already switched off the customer parking lot lights. Only the security light on the electricity pole in front of his trailer illuminated the employee parking lot. To the amusement of Arlene and Dawn, Sam had put in a yard and planted boxwood in front of his trailer, and they were constantly teasing him about the neat line of his hedge. I thought it was pretty. As usual, Sam's truck was parked in the front of his trailer, so my car was the only one left in the lot. I stretched, looking from side to side. No Bill. I was surprised at how disappointed I was. I had really expected him to be courteous, even if his heart, did he have one, wasn't in it. Maybe I thought with a smile he'd jump out of a tree or appear with a poof in front of me draped in a red line black cape, but nothing happened, so I trudged over to my car. I'd hoped for a surprise, but not the one I got. Mac Rattray jumped out from behind my car and in stride got close enough to clip me in the jaw. He didn't hold back one little bit, and I went down onto the ground like gravel, like a sack of cement. I yelled out a yell when I went down, but the ground knocked all the air out of me and some skin off me, and I was silent and breathless and helpless. Then I saw Denise, saw her swing back her heavy boot, had just enough warning to roll into a ball before the rat trays began kicking me. The pain was immediate, intense, and unrelenting. I threw my arms over my face instinctively, taking the beating on my forearms, legs, and back. I think I was sure during the first few blows that they'd stop and hiss warnings and curses at me and leave, but I remember the exact moment I realized they intended to kill me. I could lie there passively and take a beating, but I would not lie there and be killed. Next time a leg came close, I lunged and grabbed it and held on for my life. I was trying to bite, trying to get at least a mark on one of them. I wasn't even sure whose leg I had. Then from behind me, I heard a growl. Oh no, they've brought a dog, I thought, and the growl was definitely hostile. If I had any leeway with my emotions, the hair would have stood up on my scalp. Took one more kick to the spine, and then the beating stopped. The last kick had done something dreadful to me. I could hear my own stertorous breathing and a strange bubbling sound that seemed to be coming from my own lungs. What the hell is that? Trey asked and sounded absolutely terrified. I heard the growl again, closer right behind me, and from another direction I heard sort of a snarl. Denise began wailing. Mac was cursing. Denise yanked her legs from my grasp, which had grown very weak. My arms flopped to the ground. They seemed to be beyond my control. Though my vision was cloudy, I could see that my right arm was broken. My face felt wet. I was scared to continue evaluating my injuries. Fucking Bill, dude, I know. You're gonna get used to that phrase. I promise you this. Mac began screaming, and then Denise, and then there seemed to be all kinds of activity going on around me, but I couldn't move. My only view was broken arm and my battered knees in the darkness under my car. Soon, some time after, there was silence. Behind me, the dog whined. A cold nose poked my ear, and a warm tongue lifted. I tried to raise my hand to pet the dog that had undoubtedly saved my life, but I couldn't. I could hear myself sigh. It seemed to come from a long way away. Facing the fact, I said, I'm dying. It began to seem more and more real to me. Toads and crickets that had been making the most of the night had fallen silent, and all the activity and noise in the parking lot. So my little voice came out clearly and fell into darkness. Oddly enough, soon after that, I heard two voices. A pair of knees covered in bloody blue jeans came in my view. Vampire Bill leaned over so I could look into his face. There was blood smeared on his mouth, and his fangs were out, glistening white against his lower lip. I tried to smile at him, but my face wasn't working right. I'm going to pick you up, Bill said. He sounded calm. I'll die if you do, I whispered. He looked me over carefully. Not just yet, he said after this evaluation. Oddly enough, this made me feel better. No telling how many injuries he'd seen in his lifetime, I figured. This will hurt, he warned me. It was hard to imagine anything that wouldn't. His arm slid under me before I had time to get afraid. I screamed, but it was a weak effort. Quick, said a voice urgently. Going back into the woods out of sight, Bill said, cradling my body to him as if it weighed nothing. Was he going to bury me back there out of sight after he just rescued me from the rats? I almost didn't care. It was only a small relief when he laid me down on the carpet of pine needles in the darkness of the woods. In the distance, I could see the glow of light in the parking lot. Felt my hair trickling blood, and I felt the pain of my broken arm and the agony of deep bruises. But what was most frightening was that I didn't feel. I didn't feel my lungs. My abandonment felt full. My abdomen felt full, heavy. The phrase internal bleeding lodged in my thoughts, such as they were. You will die unless you do as I say, Bill told me. Sorry, don't want to be a vampire, I said, and my voice was weak and threaty. No, you won't be, he said more gently. You'll heal quickly. I have a cure, but you have to be willing. Try out the cure, I whispered. I'm going. I could feel the pull of grayness was exerting on me. In the little part of my mind that was still receiving signals from the world, I heard Bill grunt as if he'd been hurt. Then something was pressed against my mouth. Drink, he said. Tried to stick out my tongue, managed. He was bleeding, squeezing to encourage the flow of blood from his wrist into my mouth. I gagged, but I wanted to live. I forced myself to swallow and swallow again. Suddenly the blood tasted good, salty, the stuff of life. My unbroken arm rose, my hand clamped the vampire's wrist to my mouth. I felt better with every swallow, and after a minute I drifted off to sleep. When I woke up, I was still in the woods, still lying on the ground. Someone was stretched out beside me. It was the vampire. I could see his glove. I could feel his tongue moving on my head. He was licking my head wound. I could hardly begrudge him. Do I taste different from other people? I asked. Yes, he said in a thick voice. What are you? It was the third time he'd asked. Third time's a charm, Gran always said. Hey, I'm not dead, I said. Suddenly remembered I had expected to check out for good. I wiggled my arm, the one that had been broken. It was weak, but it wasn't flopping any longer. I could feel my legs, and I wiggled them too. I breathed in and out experimentally and was pleased with the resulting mild ache. I struggled to sit up. That proved to be quite an effort, but not an impossibility. It was like my first fever free day after I had pneumonia as a kid. Feeble but blissful. I was aware I'd survived something awful. But before I finished straightening, he put his arm under me and cradled me to him. He leaned back against a tree. I felt very comfortable sitting on his lap, my head against his chest. What I am is telepathic, I said. I can hear people's thoughts. Even mine? He sounded mildly curious. No, that's why I like you so much, I said, floating on a sea of pinkish well being. I couldn't seem to be bothered with camouflaging my thoughts. I felt his chest rumbled as he laughed. The laugh was a little rusty. I can't hear you at all, I blathered, my voice dreamy. You have no idea how peaceful that is. After a lifetime of blah, 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 to hear nothing. How do you manage going out with men? With men your age, their only thought is surely how to get you into bed. Well, I don't manage. And frankly, at any age, I think their goal is to get women into bed. I don't date. Everyone thinks I'm crazy, because I can't tell them the truth, which is that I'm driven crazy by all these thoughts, all these heads. I have a few dates when I started working at the bar, guys who hadn't heard about me. But it's the same as always. You can't concentrate on being comfortable with a guy or getting a head of steam up when you can hear they're wondering if you dye your hair or thinking your butt's not pretty or imagining what your boobs look like. Suddenly, I felt more alert and realized how much of myself I was revealing to this creature. Excuse me, I said. I didn't mean to burden you with my problems. Thank you for saving me from the rats. It was my fault they had a chance to get you at all, he said. I could tell there was a rage just under the calm surface of his voice. If I had the courtesy to be on time, he would have not that would have not happened. So I owe you some of my blood. I owed you the healing. Are they dead? To my embarrassment, my voice sounded squeaky. Oh yes, I gulped. I couldn't regret that the world was rid of the rats. But I had to take this straight in the face. I couldn't dodge the realization that I was sitting in the lap of a murderer. Yet I was quite happy to sit there, his arms around me. I should worry about this, but I'm not, I said, before I knew what I was going to say. Felt that rusty laugh again. Suki, why did you want to talk to me tonight? I had to think back hard. Though I was miraculously recovered from the beating physically, I felt a little hazy mentally. My grandmother's real anxious to know how old you are, I said hesitantly. Didn't know how personal a question that was to a vampire. Vampire in question was stroking my back as though he were soothing a kitten. I was made vampire in 1870 when I was 30 human years old. I looked up. His glowing face was expressionless, his eyes pitted black in the darkness of woods. Did you fight in the war? Yes. I have a feeling you're going to get mad, but it would make her and her club so happy if you would tell them a little bit about the war, about what it was really like. Club? She belongs to descendants of the glorious dead. Glorious dead. The vampire voice was unreadable, but I could tell sure enough he wasn't happy. Listen, you wouldn't have to tell them about the maggots and the infections and the starvation, I said. They have their own picture of the war. Though they're not stupid people, they lived through other wars. They would like to know more about the way people lived them in uniforms and troop movements. Clean things. I took a deep breath. Yup. Would it make you happy if I did this? What difference does that make? It would make Gran happy. And since you're in Bon Temps and seem to want to live around here, it would be a good public relations move for you. Would it make you happy? He was not a guy you could evade. Well, yes. Then I'll do it. Gran says to please eat before you come, I said. Again, I heard the rumbling laugh, deeper this time. I'm looking forward to meeting her now. Can I call on you some night? Sure. I work my last night tomorrow night, and the day after I'm off for 2 days, so Thursday would be a good night. I lifted my arm to look at my watch. It was running, but the glass was covered with dry blood. Oh, yuck, I said, wetting my finger with my mouth and cleaning it over the watch of the face with spit. It says watch face off with spit, not whatever I just said. I pressed the button that illuminated the hands and gasped when I saw what time it was. Oh gosh, I gotta get home. I hope Gran went to sleep. She must be worried about you being out so late at night by yourself, Bill observed. He sounded disapproving. Maybe he was thinking of Maudette. I had a moment of deep unease, wondering if in fact Bill had known her, or if she had invited him to come home with her. But I rejected the idea because I was stubbornly unwilling to dwell on the odd, awful nature of Maudette's life and death. I didn't want that horror to cast a shadow on my little bit of happiness. It's part of my job, I said tartly. Can't be helped. I don't work nights all the time anyway, but when I can, I do. Why? The vampire gave me a shove up to my feet, and then he rose easily from the ground. Better tips, harder work, no time to think. But night is more dangerous, he said disapprovingly. He ought to know. Now, don't you go sounding like my grandmother, I chided him mildly. We had almost reached the parking lot. I'm older than your grandmother, he reminded me. That brought the conversation up short. After I stepped out of the woods, I stood staring. The parking lot was as serene and untouched as if nothing ever happened there, as if I hadn't been nearly beaten to death on that patch of gravel only an hour before, as if the rats hadn't met their bloody end. The lights in the bar and Sam's trailer were off. The gravel was wet, but not bloody. My purse was sitting on the hood of my car. And what about the dog? I asked. I turned to look at my savior. He wasn't there. End scene. Yeah, that was chapter one of the first book of the Sookie Stackhouse series, Dead Until Dark. And that is going to pretty much conclude the stream. I'm going to roll ads and then we can talk for a second. I know it's fun, right? Bill is, you have no idea how much Bill's wild in. Okay. I want you to listen to the books and then watch the show. You know what I'm saying? Because you're already in it and I don't want there to be spoilers for you because it's so much more fun without spoilers. But you have no idea. So I'm going to roll some ads and I'll be right back to chat for a minute before I go. Hello, I'm back for a quick chat and then I'm leaving. I am leaving. I'm not even gonna say. So that was the first chapter of Dead Until Dark. Very cool. I think that I will just come back on here to read more of that, but maybe I will do an Instagram poll if we want to switch up books, different stream nights, or if we're really into like hearing the next chapter of this one. Do you know what I mean? Because I just assumed I'd read one book out loud, but I've read this, so down to read something new also, and we can do both. But I'll take a poll. If you want to follow me on Instagram, you can follow at IllyMilly or at ILMisdex because I have two accounts. It's a long story, but I do use them both, oddly enough. And you can follow me and you can always know when I'm going to stream and you can, what I'm up to otherwise, right? Um, right. IllyMilly is the main account. Yeah, I don't know. They're for different things. Like the IllyMilly account is the tarot and etc. And the Ilmistex is almost like more personal, but poetry and art. They both are poetry and art. I don't know. I don't know. I got locked out of one and then I gained access to it, so now I have two. And I just like them both. So, whatever. Post different content on there. It's not like I'm posting the same shit, but they're both kind of technically business accounts. Yeah, it's really weird, right? It's really weird. It's annoying to have two Instagrams, honestly. But again, I was using the one because I couldn't access the other. Now I got two. One of them should be my personal account, but it's not. Anyways, I love you all very much. I do not know when I'll be streaming again. Streams are a bit more sporadic these days because I don't want the burnout. That's why I'm reading instead of doing tarot, and doing less chatting and trying to keep us on track when we do chat. I have a list of covers we talked about last stream. Oh, you're back, or maybe you were here. Do you really? I didn't know you have to. I know, right? He just comes out of nowhere with these like weird, like what? You are so random sometimes. Um, okay, so I guess not. Are you singing Spice Girls? No. When to become one. I need some love like I never needed love before. Wanna make love to your baby. Had a little love. Now I'm back for more. They were not even being subtle with that one. And I was singing that shit when I was like 6 years old. I'm like, I love the Spice Girls. Like, what? Okay. Anyways, I'm leaving. Okay. And yeah, maybe we'll do karaoke on here like we've always talked about. I literally looked at my little hashtag section and was like, wow, those are all really blurry. I need to change them, but it's because I'm not wearing my glasses. I thought they were blurred out. And I was like, what does that say? Why is it blurry? Because I'm not wearing my because vision. Like who knew? Anyways, that'll do it. 12, 12, 12, 12. It was 2-1-2-1-2-1. On that note, I gotta run. It's very late. Not as nocturnal as I used to be on my schedule. Yeah. And hopefully I'll be busting out those covers. If you send me Suzanne, I'll love you forever. I already do. I love all of you. So thank you for letting me do what I do. Thank you for being here. Again, follow me on Instagram at IllyMilly if you want to know when I'm streaming again, because at this point, I do not know. Okay, so mwah. Good night to you all, and thanks for being here. Good night, good luck, whatever the fuck. Have a good day, evening, afternoon, wherever you are, whatever it means to you. Okay. Good night. Thank you. Sweet dreams. Or once again, like pleasant day ahead. Hope the weather is exactly as you want it to be and a whole bunch of other things. Okay. Okay.